Hey everybody, Ryan here, and today we are starting our set review for the first Riftbound set called Origins, which is releasing in English on October 31st. And so that is getting closer, so I want to look at all the cards and tell you what I think about them and grade them. My grading scale will be A, B, C, D, and F, so kind of like a school grading scale. Of note, this is only for 1v1, so I know that there's free-for-all and teams, which some cards are more inclined to be better or worse in those formats, but this is just going to be more the competitive format of 1v1. Also, I am taking into consideration of like kind of what I've seen from some of the Chinese Opens, stuff like that, but as well as this is not just a meta tier list. This is just more like what I think they could be and how good they might be in the future, not necessarily how good they are right now. Today, we are going to start with all the legends as well as the legends spells. And then each video after that, we will go color by color. So this will be a couple different video series. So let's jump into ranking some legends. Kai'Sa, Daughter of the Void. This is a red-blue legend, and it is tap or exhaust. You might see me say either one. Technically, it's exhaust, but I might say tap because that's my magic brain. Reaction, add 1 power of any color, use only to play spell. This is a fantastic ability. And yes, in the meta, she is very, very dominant, but just not even looking at the meta, what this ability is that is so powerful, because power means you have to recycle one of your runes and put it at the bottom of your rune deck. That can be really, really harsh, especially in the first couple turns. You can lose a lot of tempo. With Kai'Sa, she's like, no, 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 I don't have to recycle a rune. I can just tap and add 1 power. Of note, she cannot do this for units or gears. It is only for spells, but this ability is fantastic, and this is an easy A, no questions asked, and it just is no surprise that she is so good. Kai'Sa's signature spell is Icathian Rain. This is 7 energy, 3 power. It is do this 6 times, deal 2 to a unit. You can choose different units. That's equivalent of 12 damage. That is a lot of damage. However, this is very costly. It is 7 energy, 3 power. Of note, if you are playing Kai'Sa, which you have to in order to play her signature spell, it will be just 2 power. That is still really costly, and I do think that this is a very powerful effect, right? You can definitely get a 2-for-1, maybe a 3-for-1, or just maybe a 1-for-1 and kill a very problematic unit on the other side of the board, but its cost is pretty high. So I am going to say that this is a B. Even with Kai'Sa's ability making this only 2 power, not 3 power, I still feel like this is pretty high, and I think that there are some other damage dealing effects that will be better. So I will say B for now. One thing I want to note is I'm not necessarily rating these legendaries based off of their colors and how good the color combination is. It's more just intrinsically what they are doing, where like, does this make you want to be in this color? So with that being said, next up is Volibear, Relentless Storm. He is a red-orange legendary. His ability is when you play a mighty unit, you may exhaust me to channel 1 rune exhausted. A unit is mighty while it has 5+ might. This is a pretty decent ability, especially in orange that is going to probably play a lot of mighty units. Also would like to ramp into even more bigger, beefier mighty units. That is pretty good. Of note, you can only do this once per turn because you have to tap or exhaust Volibear in order to use the ability. But I actually think that this is just C. I don't feel like this is going to play out as good as I want it to, and I feel like it will be a little bit clunkier. Volibear's signature spell is Stormbringer. It is 6 energy, 2 power. Choose a friendly unit in your base. Deal damage equal to its might to all enemy units at a battlefield, then move your unit there. This is a very powerful effect. Yes, it does cost kind of a lot. It is resource intensive. However, like, you could get a 2-for-1. You have a big beefy unit at your base and your opponent has 2 smaller, weaker units at a battlefield, you can just kill them straight out. I think that there's probably cheaper spells that probably do this a little bit better. Overall, kind of like Volibear, I'm giving this a C. It's a powerful effect, but I think that there's just better ways to do this effect. Jinx Loose Cannon, red purple legend. At the start of your beginning phase, draw 1 if you have 1 or fewer cards in your hand. I read this and I like this ability a lot. lot, especially in the color combination, because red wants to be aggressive. And so then therefore, usually aggressive decks dump out their hand really fast, and then you draw up and you just drop to more and more gas. This is situational, where if you are never having one or fewer cards in hand, you're never drawing a card. So this really forces you into a play style. I think if that play style is good, of just dumping out your whole hand, Jinx will go way up. However, if that play style is not that good, Jinx goes way down, rather than something like Kai'Sa, which, you know, I will keep referencing her because she is an A tier for sure, which Kai'Sa will always just be good. Where I think Jinx will really depend. I like the ability, but I'm not sure if it will quite be there, especially in standard with just one set. I could see Jinx being better when there's more and more sets that are released in Riftbound. So, you know, standard becomes 3, 4, 5 sets. But right now, I'm kind of giving her a B. Maybe she should be a C, but I like her, so I'm going to give her a B. Her signature spell is Super Mega Death Rocket. It is 4 energy, 1 power, deal 5 to a unit. When you conquer, you may discard 1 to return this from your trash to your hand. So it's kind of just this like repeatable effect where you have to conquer a battlefield in order to even maybe get this back, as well as you have to discard 1 card. So you're never just getting this back for free. You're basically saying, well, like, okay, what's better, this card in my hand or Super Mega Death Rocket? And then you have to decide. So it's nice if you are throwing away weaker cards and just getting it back a more powerful card. However, you're probably playing pretty powerful cards in your deck. What this is really good with is, do you have discard outlets? Because red and purple definitely do want to discard some cards for value. So if you have a lot of those types of cards, this will go way up, because this is just a nice repeatable way to discard cards for value. However, kind of like I said with Jinx, I think that this card might be better because that's a more synergistic deck when standard becomes more. So right now, I'm actually putting this as a C, but this is a C, like a synergistic C. And sometimes that's where C's are kind of in my mind, where there might be synergistic, but maybe not just quite there. And I could see this going up or maybe just staying at a C. Darius Hand of Noxus is red, yellow, and it is exhaust Legion, add 1 energy. Of note, Legion is basically, it says, get the effect if you've played a card this turn. So with Darius's ability, you have to play a card, then you can exhaust him to add 1 energy. So then it helps you to play a second card, which is really powerful. And I do like this effect because adding resources like Kai'Sa does is awesome. Where this is just a generic energy, so this could actually help you play something out faster, but it doesn't help you having to, you know, recycle some of your runes. Where there is some deck building requirement, rather than Kai'Sa is just like, well, put this in any deck and it is going to be good. There is some deck building requirement. I would say that this is B. Just intrinsically a nice solid B. Noxian Guillotine is Darius's signature spell. This is 4 energy, 1 power. Action, choose a unit. Kill it the next time it takes damage this turn. Legion, kill it now instead. Right off the bat, I do not want to spend 4 energy, 1 power to do choose a unit, kill it the next time it takes damage this turn. That is not a good card to me. However, the Legion of just kill it outright for an action is awesome. So if you are in a Legion deck, I really do think that this is a solid removal. Yes, you do have to recycle one of your runes, but I do think it's a very good removal. But if you cannot trigger that Legion, I do not like this card at all. Maybe that means it should be in a C for me, but I think in a Legion deck, this is a B. And I kind of think, yeah, I'm comfortable with a B. Ahri Nine-Tailed Fox is green blue. When an enemy unit attacks a battlefield you control, give it -1 this turn to a minimum of 1 might. I want to like this card more, maybe just because Ahri is pretty cool. And I think that there's a lot of cool tricks that you can do in green and blue to even amplify this a little bit more. I keep on saying, I like the ones that are just giving you this great advantage throughout the whole thing, where this is situational, right? It has to be, you know, an enemy attacks a battlefield that you control. That's the only time that it comes up. Will that -1 might really impact the battlefield or the battle that much. Maybe, maybe not. And it's an onboard trick. Therefore, your opponent knows that it's right there. So they can just do the calculations, be like, okay, is this advantageous for me? No, I won't do this. So overall, I do think that this is just a little bit too weak for what you get, but it is an effect that can be good, especially adding it to other blue and green cards. Here's the thing, in the first set, we don't have many choices for each and every color. So it's like, yeah, if you are in these colors, this effect is fine. So yeah, it is probably a C. It's not like completely worthless, like a D tier. Ahri's signature spell is Foxfire. It is 3 energy, and hide is hide now for 1 of any color energy to react with later for 0. It is an action. It says kill any number of units at a battlefield with total might 4 or less. This could be a very big blowout, especially looking at Nine-Tailed Fox, you know, Ahri. That -1 could really make you be able to kill more units. And so maybe I was a little bit too harsh on her, where I think that her ability and this really do play very well together. Also, green's ability of shrinking units does play very well with Foxfire. If you are a green deck that can really reduce your opponent's units, this could be very good. I do think that this could easily be blowout with pump spells and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, I kill all these things, and then your opponent's like, well, I pump my thing to be mighty or whatever, and now your Foxfire does nothing. That could really feel bad. And so that's why I don't feel like I can give this more than a C. This could be a B or better, depending on what combat tricks we are seeing and what buff spells we are seeing. But for right now, I feel like this is very situational, so that's why I'm giving it a C. Lee Sin Blind Monk is green-orange, 1 exhaust, buff a friendly unit. Buffing a unit means if it doesn't have a buff, it gets a +1 buff. I like this. I think that this is very straightforward, no nonsense. As long as you have a unit, you can use this. However, it does cost an energy. Of note, it's not a power, so an energy is not that bad. So hey, if you have an energy left over, then you use this. If you don't, maybe then you don't. But I do really like the legend abilities that don't require any sort of resource. You know, you just tap it and it does something, or like Ahri's, it just automatically does something, more of a status effect. Because overall, I have cards in my hand that I want to use my resources to play. And so sometimes I do feel like the ones that cost to activate their ability better be really good. And Lee Sin's ability, I think, is good, especially there are buff type strategies that are very nice to always have almost this like buff on a stick for the low cost of 1 energy. But it is 1 energy at the end of the day. I don't think that this is anything broken. I don't think that this is trash. I think this is just a nice middle of the road C. His signature spell is Dragon's Rage. This is 4 energy, 1 power. Move an enemy unit, then choose another enemy unit at its destination. They deal damage equal to their might to each other. This could be really devastating, where if there's a 5 might and a 5 might unit, you move them together and then they just kill both of them. That is a awesome 2-for-1. Like, I could see this being dead in hand a lot, where it's like, oh man, my opponent only has, you know, a 6 might and a 2 might, and I don't really care about that 2 might. So am I really going to spend all these resources and a card to kill that 2 might unit that's not really doing anything? Overall, I think that this could be a very cool and feels awesome when you do something like get a nice 2-for-1, but I'm actually going to give this a D, because I feel like those moments won't happen as much as just when it's just like, this is a dead card in my hand and isn't doing that much, or it's just like takes so much to make this actually a great card. And I could be completely wrong. Maybe this will be an A tier card, but for right now, I'm giving it a D. Prove me wrong, Dragon's Rage. I would like to be wrong, because I do like Lee Sin and I do like this art a lot. Yasuo Unforgiven is green-purple, and his ability is 2 exhaust, move a friendly unit to or from your base. So this is kind of like Lee Sin's ability, where you do have to spend some resources, or energy in this case, to then get the ability. It's not a static ability, but that doesn't mean that this ability is not strong. This ability is strong, especially some Yasuo Yasuo stuff really wants to be moving around from battlefield to base and bases to battlefields and all this stuff, which this could really be awesome of just like really moving around, scoring a lot of points in a turn and just doing a lot of mayhem. And I do like this ability. I do think it costing 2 makes it a little bit less powerful, because then you can't really combo off in one turn because you're automatically having to pay 2 of your resources right off the bat to use this. But I think that this could be a good ability, especially the more cards that we get, to make a synergistic deck really work. I'm going to give this a C. Yasuo Last Blade is up next. It is 3 and 2 power. It is an action, ready a friendly unit. It deals damage equal to its might to an enemy unit at a battlefield. I like this one. Yes, it does cost 2 power, which is a lot of power, but 3 energy is pretty low. And it does 2 big things. 1, you ready a friendly unit. That means you could play a unit and then ready it and actually move it the first turn, or you can just move something, then unexhaust it and ready it and move it again. And that is what this color combination really wants to do. And then 2, this can act as a removal spell, and that is very, very big. And of note, it is deal damage equal to its might, so it's just a punch. It is not a fight, so you just punch something. Yes, of course, as soon as you punch something, that does give your opponent a time to react to it, so maybe it does like fizzle and it doesn't kill it, but you still do get to ready that unit. So I do like this overall. I think that this is a nice solid B. If you can make this work, I think that this could be very, very strong. Leona Radiant Dawn is green yellow. Her ability is when you stun 1 or more enemy units, buff a friendly unit. So this is exactly what kind of green wants to do. Stun, yellow wants to buff. I don't like this ability at all. I think this will be the first F. I don't think it's that good. It's super situational, especially looking at the other legends. Even the ones that I'm giving a C to are way better in my mind, because 1, you have to use a card or ability or something to stun. She does not help you stun any units. So once you find an ability to stun a unit, then she actually does something of you buff a friendly unit. That's a lot of hoops to jump through just to do 1 buff. And yes, buffs can be very good, but I think that there's just way better legendaries out there. Her signature spell is Zenith Blade. It is 3 energy, 2 power for an action that says stun an enemy unit at a battlefield. You may move a friendly unit to that enemy unit's battlefield. And then it has a reminder text that says a stunned unit doesn't deal combat damage this turn. Overall, this is cool because you get to stun something, and then you do get to move a friendly unit there all in 1 card. I think that that is kind of nice. This isn't that flashy for a signature spell, I guess. I maybe want a little bit more. Maybe it's a C, but I'm going to give it a D. An F legend and a D legendary spell. Everybody's favorite little Yordle is up next. Teemo, Swift Scout. I love this little guy. He is blue, purple, and you may pay 1 to hide a card with hidden instead of a power. So basically you can pay 1 energy rather than 1 power. That is humongous. Just paying 1 energy is, yeah, okay, that's fine. That's not setting you off back tempo. And this is anytime you hide a card. This is not like exhaust once per turn or something like that. That is any time. So that ability is very strong. The other ability is 1 exhaust, put a Teemo unit you own into your hand from your champion zone or the board. So this really, if you want to just like, oh, my Teemo's going to die, okay, retreat him back to my hand or something like that, where I think that that could be very good. But what I really, really like is that first ability. I don't necessarily know if Teemo's going to be that strong in base Sett Origins, just because we don't have a big card pool, but I kind of want to give this a B, because it's like, if you are playing a hidden strategy with a lot of hidden cards, this ability makes that setback cost null and void, and I think that that is very strong. So I'm going to give Teemo B, and I'm very excited to get more cards and really build a Teemo deck when you can do a little bit more synergistic stuff. Teemo's signature spell is Guerrilla Warfare. It is 2 energy, 1 power. It says return up to 2 cards with hidden from your trash to your hand. You can hide ignoring cost this turn. This is pretty cool. If you do have 2 hidden cards in your trash, is spend 1 card to get 2 cards back to your hand. However, that is is situational if you don't have those cards in your trash. Maybe it's just a 1-for-1, and that is not good. Also, you can hide ignoring cost this turn. You do have to play this with Teemo, and Teemo only makes the hidden cost 1 energy rather than 1 power, but this means you can hide without even paying 1 energy, so you can do a little bit more action economy with your turn. Overall, I like this. I'm going to give this a B, kind of with Teemo, where maybe we're not going to see this that much in the first set, but I really want a Teemo and more hidden stuff going on because I think that this could be fun, maybe annoying, but hey, that is Teemo's MO. Viktor, Herald of the Arcane, is blue-yellow. His ability is pay 1 energy, exhaust, play a 1 might recruit unit token. This is the only legend that basically brings friends with him. A 1 might recruit token might not sound that good, but hey, it's a body, and bodies can be good because maybe you can sacrifice it or pump it up or just have it be fodder for a battle where it dies, but it has you conquer something that you were not able to do before. Yes, you do have to pay 1 in order to do this, and it is just 1 per turn because you have to exhaust. I do like this ability. I do think that this is strong. I actually might put this at an A just because it's a very different ability than we've seen in the other legends. Viktor's signature spell is Siphon Power. It is 2 energy, 1 power for a reaction that says choose a battlefield. Give friendly units there +1 might this turn, and enemy units there -1 might this turn to a minimum of 1 might. This is a great way to utilize your recruit tokens that you've been pumping out with Viktor throughout the course of the game, because now those 1 mights become 2 mights, and that is very good. So if there is a nice go wide strategy, I really like this signature spell, and I'm going to give this an A because I think that this could like really turn out a combat and really benefit from you making all these, kind of weak tokens and make them a little bit stronger for 1 turn, but could really get you a lot of points and a lot of tempo and advantage. Misfortune Bounty Hunter, orange, purple, exhaust, give a unit ganking this turn. Ganking says it can move from a battlefield to a battlefield because usually a unit can only move from a battlefield back to your base. This could be very tricky, especially if you have some units that get buffs or cards by going into a battlefield. This is not, pay 1 energy and exhaust to give it ganking. The ganking is free. Yes, you can only do it 1 turn because you do have to exhaust her, but it is free for your resources, and that automatically bumps it up. And I'm going to give this a B. Maybe if you have to pay resources, this could be lower, but I think you could do a lot of tricky things with this and just still have all your energy and power to be able to play cards while still being tricky in a turn. Her signature spell is Bullet Time. 1 energy. Pay any amount of, here's the power, to deal that much damage to all enemy units at a battlefield. That's really costly. The 1 energy is basically free. I want to deal with that 5 might unit. I'm going to have to pay 5 energy? That's a lot, but hey, if I pay 5 energy and there's like a 5 might, a 2 might, and a 3 might, that's a good 3 for 1 card. That is really nice, but it can set you back. So I don't know. I think the ceiling could be very high for this, but man, the floor could be so low where this could just be miserable. I do think that the setup cost is just quite a lot for this. I kind of want to give it a D, but maybe it's a C, where I'm going to give a C for kind of build around and a hopeful future for it, because I think that this could feel very fun to play, but I'm a little worried that it just might be too much setup cost and be a D at the end of the day. Sett the Boss is our last legendary, and he is orange and yellow. When a buffed unit you control would die, you may pay 1 power and exhaust me to spend its buff and recall it exhausted instead. When you conquer, ready me. That is a super strong ability and has so much intrinsic value. For the low cost of 1 buff and 1 power, you get to save a unit that would have died. That is awesome. Of note, though, there is setup cost because that unit does need to be buffed. So this has to be in a deck that is buffing their units. But as long as you can buff your units, this is a great champion. I really like this one. I'm in between an A and a B, and this is definitely a build around. However, the build around is just having buffs. I'm hesitant between an A and a B. Maybe I should start doing pluses or minuses, but I'm not going to for this video. Maybe in other videos we will. I'm going to give this a B just because I don't think it's to the caliber of the other A ones. Sett's signature spell is Showstopper. This is 1 energy, 1 power. Buff a friendly unit in your base, then move it to a battlefield. You get a buff, which is really good with Sett's ability because, hey, if it dies, then you can recall it, and you get to move it for our base. So this could be pseudo accelerate. I do like this one, and I think this has a lot of upside for a very, very low cost. So overall, I'm going to give this just a nice solid B. You know, it's nothing super flashy or anything, but also it just doesn't cost that much. So overall, B. So that's the Sett review of looking at all the legends and their signature spells in Origins. I hope you liked it. I like these because I always find it fun to basically theory craft and think about how good these cards are, or kind of look at how good these cards are right now, because we do know how good some are. And overall, I think there's a lot of great legends. I think there are a couple of very weak ones, but there's a lot of the middle of the roads which are very deck dependent. Of like, a lot of those C's are like, hey, if you can build a deck around this is going to be really good, but it's a build around C for now. I do think that some of those A's, especially Kai'Sa, where it's just like, she is so powerful at all points of the game and asks completely nothing, and that is why she's that A and the best of the best, where some of those C's kind of look good, but it's like, oh, you're asking me to do things. Or some of those B's even look really good, and you might be like, well, why isn't that an A? It's like, well, it's asking me to jump through one single hoop, or maybe just, you know, baby step over a single hoop, where Kai'Sa's asking absolutely nothing. Her ability is always going to be good, always going to be impactful, and it always is going to do something some game. So I feel like she really warps the rating scale that I had. And so maybe that's why you saw some being a little bit in that C when maybe they could have been better. But overall, it's looking very excited. I like the flavor. I'm more and more excited for the set to be released. But in the next video, we will probably be talking about more of the cards by each color. So I hope you'll tune in next time, and I'll see you all later.